Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, Karen Squatter moves into my house while I'm gone. Now she's in jail. Santa Monica, California. I'm the owner of a 2-story house. I'd gone to Hawaii last week for a 1-week vacation with my wife. No one was at home, and it wasn't feasible for us to take 2 dogs with us, so I gave my house keys to a good friend of mine, and I asked him to take care of my 2 dogs. This would involve feeding them, changing water, and taking them out to walk 1 hour a day. So his girlfriend was in town and she had no place to stay. He lives in a 1-bedroom condo with 2 other roommates. So he messaged me and asked if I would allow his girlfriend to stay at my home for just 1 night. I agreed, as it was just a matter of 1 night. Now, yesterday I came back and found out his girlfriend had made dwelling in my upper floor of my house. She's been staying here for 4 days. I asked her to leave immediately, but she and my friend are insisting to let her stay 1 more week because she's in search of a job in LA. I called the police. They came and said this would be a civil matter and I have to go through the eviction process. So I'm here with an unwanted stranger in my upper floor, a jerk friend who broke promises, and my upset wife. What to do, guys? Can I change locks and throw her stuff out when she's away? Cut the electricity to the upper floor? Update. So after reading all of the advice here and carefully discussing it with my cousin, we made a nasty plan. Yesterday night, that squatter girl went outside to grab some dinner with her boyfriend. Me and my cousin carefully packed all of her stuff into 3 bags and we left it on the front porch and locked ourselves in the house. We also looked over her stuff from the window to make sure that no one stole it. Our wait was over after 2 hours when she returned. She figured it out and started pounding on our door, yelling loudly to open it. You know, typical squatter drama. We told her to buzz off and that we wouldn't open the door. So finally, after 30 minutes of constant drama, she dared to call the cops. I was nervous how it would turn out. The cops arrived, and fortunately, these were different ones than the previous night. First, they listened to her side, then they came to me. I explicitly told them that I was the sole owner of this house and I never allowed her to stay more than 1 night. She was not only trespassing, but also living in my house illegally without my permission. She kept saying I'd given her permission to stay there indefinitely, and now I'm kicking her out. Officer asked if she had any proof of that. She claimed she had some text message which she had accidentally deleted. Now to the best part. Officer then asked her for an ID. She gave it. Officer verified it over the radio. Suddenly, they told him that this jerk had a failure to appear warrant for months-old shoplifting cases. Stupid lady was arrested immediately. All her stuff was sent to a friend's house. Officer said that I don't need to worry and they'll take care of her. I do not require any further action. So finally I'm relieved from that squatter and she's behind bars. Pure justice. I always thought evictions were used to handle unwanted guests that were living somewhere for 2 weeks to 30 days plus. Too bad the cops didn't stick her with a trespassing charge as well as the old shoplifting charge. How often do cops call something a civil matter just because they don't want to do paperwork? I swear, that's what every single one of these civil matter situations feels like. The one thing I've learned about these tenancy laws and squatters is just take their crap and throw it outside, call a locksmith, and put in security cameras. They want to call the police, okay, go for it. She doesn't live here, she has no proof of tenancy, and she's currently trespassing. Please get her off my property now. Done. If you call when they are in, they will always take the con artist side, which they know, which is why they do it. Also, forget that friend, like he didn't know what his girlfriend was going to do. Forget them both. Am I wrong for expecting people to pay my kid? My kid, who's 9, has recently gotten into baking. She's really passionate about it, and it has sparked most of our family members to stimulate said passion by requesting her to bake small items they happen to be craving right as they're coming over or have invited us over. They're always very small things like, oh, I'd sure love some brownies, or similar. But since people are asking and complimenting her genuinely makes her heart smile, I only support it, and I don't mind paying for the ingredients. Now, one of my family members is hosting a gathering and asked my daughter to bake 75 cupcakes. They said they would take her shopping for the ingredients. She asked me if she could, and I said sure. I supervise the oven-related steps and have to be present. Afterwards, I contacted said family member to get some specifics as to allergies and other nonsense, and brought up the fact that she was so excited to have her very first paying customer. Said family member was apparently appalled at the expectation of paying my kid for hours of labor and stated that since she is a kid and doesn't have a genuine business yet, She shouldn't expect payment because taxes. I replied that if she feels that strong, she should have ordered from a genuine business because there's no way in any universe I'm going to let someone exploit her like that. She got mad and hung up on me. Now some additional info. I didn't expect a full hourly wage, just something extra to thank her for her hard work. She's been putting every cent she gets in allowance or earns towards more baking supplies. I expect she would have done the same with this money, but that's entirely up to her. If said family members decide not to pay, I'm still going to let her make the big order, pay her in full, and take the food down to a local food bank so she still gets the money and the experience. As fellow parents, how would you have approached this situation? I feel like I potentially robbed her of an experience she would have enjoyed out of personal principle. Edit. This is not a close family member. She's the kind of relative you only see at funerals or weddings. All the money that my kids earn goes to them 100%. Yes, I do pay them for the chores they do. No, I'm not trying to turn my daughter's hobby into a business. I'm only supporting and teaching her wherever she takes it. I do not feel any kind of strong emotion towards said relative. I don't dislike her at all, and we aren't American. Does your kid enjoy being with this relative? Sounds like it could have been just a fun afternoon activity with someone special, while you're turning this person into a paying customer. I'd be insulted if I offered to my niece or granddaughter, whoever, that I bring them shopping for ingredients so we could do cupcakes together, and then I somehow turn into a paying customer. As for the exact count of 75, anytime I'm cooking with kids, I do so with the full understanding that I'll end up doing 92% of the work anyway. OP. She sees this person twice a year and has no relationship with her. 2. She promoted herself to customer, as according to my daughter, she said, "How would you like your very first customer?" 3. She would be baking them from home and I would be driving them to the event. The relative would not be involved. Even if she were to be, the only thing she needs help with is putting things in or taking them out of the oven. So she does 99% of the work herself. Did your kid expect to get paid? Yes, she did. The relative said, according to my daughter, "How would you like your very first customer?" My daughter isn't an idiot. Customers pay for services and goods. When she asked me if she was allowed to do that, she even offered to share the profits with me for supervising her, which I obviously declined. Sounds like you may have made a fun and pleasant experience a stressful one. As of now, she's still unaware of this. I'm going to resolve this. Either she bakes for the relative and gets paid by her, or she bakes for the food bank and gets paid by me. Update. I have sat my daughter down and explained to her that the relative did not intend on paying her, that she was welcome to do the work for free if she so desired, but that she also was allowed to decline her request. We proceeded to have an entire discussion about the differences about doing someone a favor, like a pan of brownies, and labor, like catering an event. I emphasized it was her decision and she would have my help and support whichever way she went. She ended up asking if it were possible for her to attend the event instead of receiving payment so she could see the people eat her cupcakes and brag about making them, which the relative declined because it was a child-free event and she could not make exceptions. We both found this fair enough, and she requested a set of baking pans in sizes she doesn't have yet as payment, which the relative also declined because why should she give her gifts while it was the relative's time to be celebrated? She went on to say that my kid was ruining the party by refusing to do dessert because she counted on it. My daughter was starting to feel guilty and I stepped in, gave her a list of local bakeries and at-home bakers she could contact and wished her a fantastic day. Reassured my kid, and we went to go shopping for the baking tins ourselves. About 2 hours later, the relative, undoubtedly having contacted bakers and bakeries, called and offered my daughter a gift card for a local shop that sells all kinds of cooking and baking supplies. She happily accepted, and we thought that was that. The relative really stepped her game up in making up for the nonsense, and she arranged for my kid and myself to supervise to be allowed in the venue's kitchen and make the cupcakes there, as the venue owners, who also cater the venue, thought this would be a good idea. I've ordered her very first apron, and she is beyond excited to experience a commercial kitchen, and watching her heart smile makes my mom heart happy. I spent the day with my sister's best friend, and now she's telling my parents that I'm a homewrecker. So this all started yesterday when I, 22 female, had a date planned with a guy. He ended up not showing, and so naturally I texted the group chat about it. My sister is in this particular group chat. I'm guessing my sister, Sarah, who's 26, told her best friend, Jay, who's 27, about it, because a few minutes later, Jay texted me to ask if I'm okay. I told him yes, just a little disappointed since I was pretty excited to try that particular restaurant. He said that he would pick me up at noon the next day so we could go eat there. I told him it wasn't necessary, but he insisted, so I agreed, thinking nothing of it. Well, today he took me out as promised, and while we were eating, Sarah FaceTimed Jay. When he didn't answer, she called again and again. He answered the fourth call and asked her what was going on. She said that she was just checking up on us and told me to call her later. Later ended up being almost 8. Jay and I ended up spending the rest of the day together, hunting down some collectible dolls we both like and trying different dessert spots along the way. On the way back to my apartment, Jay asked me to change the music on his phone. When I opened it, I saw that my sister had called him about 30 times throughout the day and texted him across multiple different apps. Jay put his phone on Do Not Disturb after lunch, so it made sense why he didn't see the notifications. Once he dropped me off, I called my sister and asked her if everything was all right. She said yes and asked if I had forgotten to call her back sooner. I told her that I was out with Jay, so I didn't get the chance and figured it could wait since she didn't call me. She hung up, and a few minutes later I got a call from my mom. She sounded angry and told me that I should be ashamed of myself. I said sure, but why today? According to my mom, Sarah called her in tears, saying that she had caught Jay and I hooking up at their apartment. I was so confused. I told my mom that I did not, in fact, do this, and that I didn't even know they lived together. I asked her to give me a minute, and I called Jay, but he didn't answer. So now I'm here laying on my floor, wondering what's going on and putting off another conversation with my mom. Update. I wanted to clear up some confusion. On my original post, when my mom told me that Sarah and Jay shared an apartment, I said I didn't even know they lived together. Those were my verbatim words to her, because last I knew, Sarah had a roommate and Jay lived alone. I was right, that's still the case. I wasn't clear about that. I'm bad at expressing myself sometimes. Another thing was people were wondering how Jay found out about my date, or lack thereof. And according to him, he was hanging out with a few of his friends, including my sister, and she told him about it in a joking way. Another thing is that some people are asking why I went out with Jay if I knew my sister liked him. I didn't know. Just because I talked to my sister doesn't mean she talks to me the same way. If I had known, I would have talked to her about it first, because I know from past experience that my sister is a jealous person. Anyway, last night was a doozy. Jay called me back. He said he was going to stay at a friend's because he would feel safer with company. I asked him if there had ever been anything romantic between him and my sister. He said the only thing was that he kissed her at a New Year's party at midnight because she was feeling left out. Obviously, I can't confirm if that really is the only thing. He also said that he had never even talked about moving in with Sarah, so he doesn't know why she would say they were living together. After I spoke with Jay, I called my mom again. She still sounded upset, but this time I could hear my sister crying in the background and my dad yelling for us to get over there. Our being Jay and I, presumably. Well, as I told my mother earlier, I don't like to drive at night, so I told them I would go the next morning. That also gave me the time to gather any evidence I could to prove my innocence. Jay even sent me a copy of his lease to prove that he and Sarah do not live together. I went to my parents alone because Jay has a job. As soon as I arrived, my parents started yelling at me. Just the usual stuff, that I was disrespectful, but they never expected this from me. How dare you do this to your own sister? You know she already has a hard time. Why make her life harder? My dad even called me names. That was fun. I kind of just sat there and did the math on how much faster I would be able to finish my grad program and flee the country, or at least the state. I wasn't very tuned in until my mom told me that if Sarah lost her job because of me, that I would need to financially support her until she found another one. That's when I snapped and told them that if they thought I was going to do that, then they were as delusional as my sister. Missing one day of work because of a tantrum over something that didn't even happen was not going to get her fired. My dad said that Sarah had been missing work to make sure that Jay wasn't leaving work early to go see me. I found out. My sister also told them that Jay was missing a lot of work, so he wasn't taking enough home for their bills, so they had been sending her rent money for months. I told them it wasn't true, and I showed them the lease Jay sent, where it clearly says the day the lease started and when it ends. It also has his address, which is not the same as Sarah's. My mom brought Sarah out of her room, where she had apparently been this entire time, and told her to explain herself. Sarah said that he probably got that other apartment so that he could be closer to me when he went on supposed business trips. First of all, Jay is a software developer. I don't know what business trips he would go on. Second, nice way to find out that my sister doesn't even know where I live, because Jay's apartment is almost an hour away from mine. I showed my parents that on Google Maps, and they finally started to believe me. Sarah started crying and calling me a liar. My dad told me that even if what I said was true, I shouldn't have been so hard on Sarah, and that as her sister, I should be helping her when she's having a rough time like this. I told him I wasn't a therapist, but if she ever decided to get help, I would pitch in. I left after that. There was nothing else I needed to say, and there was no point in waiting on an apology. My dad looked uncomfortable, and my mom was too busy consoling my sister to notice me leaving. I haven't talked to them after that. Sorry if you were expecting a fun update where I somehow got revenge on my sister or something crazy and petty. If you have questions, I'll answer them. Thanks for caring, though. Am I the jerk for not taking in my in-laws and not helping them with medical bills? I, 24 male, do pretty well for myself, have my own place, a stable and boring job that doesn't require much of my attention, and pays well while I work from home. Have plenty of hobbies, buy nice clothes. Just in general, I have a pretty comfortable life. My fiance, who's 26, moved in when we got engaged about 2 years ago. Important context is that everything is in my name, and she doesn't pay rent, only bills specific to her, like buying the things she likes to eat with her own money, and helps with some of the utility bills. About 10 months back, my father-in-law, who's 56, was diagnosed with a pretty curable case of lung cancer, since he had an early-ish diagnosis. But my in-laws don't have the best financial condition, and these months of medical bills and other expenses might see them homeless and father-in-law without money to stay on his treatment. My in-laws have always treated me horribly and were always openly against my relationship to their daughter, to the point where they'd explicitly tell her not to bring me to family gatherings and to invite her ex. Things of this nature. And yes, she had my back and stopped attending said family gatherings, but she still loves her family and they mean a lot to her. So she asked if we could take them in and help her father with his treatment, to which I said no without thinking twice. She asked if I can't think on it for a few days, and I replied, if I think on it for a few days, I'll only be more sure of my already obvious conclusion. They're not setting foot in here, and I don't care what happens to either of them. She replied, saying something along the lines of us having the income to spare, and that is true, but around 70% of it is my income, not hers, and space, also true, and asked me if my hobbies and spending money on myself. That kinda got me annoyed since I spend a lot of money on us, not just me. Although, yeah, I have a few hobbies I spend on, was really more important than her family. To which I simply said, yeah, it is. Now, my fiance didn't blow up at me or anything. She's not one for conflict, but she called me a jerk and has been staying the last couple of days over at her parents'. Still calls me before bed every night, but is still clearly upset with me. Very upset. Am I the jerk? Edit. Since a lot of people asked, and some pointed out it could be important info, I come from a Japanese family, and she, her family, and her ex are all African American. Also, another frequent question is if I know why they dislike me. I don't. They won't say anything to my face, but they've disliked me from day one, and I know that they argued with my fiance because of me several times, especially in the earlier years. Not the jerk. Have you suggested that she contact her ex to help them out? I'd end it on this hill if I were you. Stay strong, brother. Not the jerk. They don't like you, didn't want you around them or in their home, but now that they're struggling, they've decided they now want your home and your money? If your fiance is so worried, she can use her own money to help her parents. People here are saying you should help them so you can heal the relationship, etc. No, they didn't want a relationship and they were awful to you. It's not up to you now to use your home and money to heal anything. They had opportunity over the years to do this, but only want to do it now that they need you. Don't help toxic people. Am I the jerk for losing my passport to avoid babysitting on my vacation? I, 17 female, still live at home. My sister, who's 28, is married and has 2 kids who are 5 and 3. Whenever she comes over to visit, my parents and her stick me with the kids. This wouldn't be a problem, except she doesn't visit for an evening. She'll come for a week, and for that week, I'm an unpaid nanny. If we go out to a restaurant, I have to entertain them because my mom needs to talk to my sister and brother-in-law. You get the picture. My parents decided that since this was my last summer before I become an adult, we would be going to Disneyland to celebrate my graduation. I asked who was going, and they said it was just the 3 of us. But when we got to the airport, my sister and her family were there. Strangely enough, they also were going to Disneyland. I went into my backpack and grabbed my passport. I put it in my sock. When we got to the international security, I couldn't find it. We looked everywhere. I had to Uber home and I missed my flight. Oh well, I get to stay home by myself for a week of peace and quiet. My parents were very mad at me for losing my passport. The money they spent on my flight and entrance was wasted. Darn. My mom and sister have both been posting about how hard it is to be at Disneyland with two little ones. They both posted that I ruined the vacation by being so thoughtless. My dad says he knows why I did it and he understands, but he says I should have let them know so he didn't waste money. He said he would have gone along with my ruse. I feel bad about wasting money, but I've been to Disneyland before, and I will go again later by myself or with friends. Not the jerk, but if they posted on social media, say, wait, I ruined the vacation because I was supposed to help you with the kids or take care of them by myself. So this wasn't about me? Yeah, reply with, oh, I'm sorry I ruined your vacation. If you had only let me know in advance that you didn't in fact plan this vacation as a celebration for my graduation like you told me, but only wanted me there as your unpaid full-time babysitter, I'd have made more of an effort to be there. Not the jerk. My ex is trying to force me to adopt her son. My wife and I separated about a year ago after 6 years of marriage, but we are not legally divorced yet. We have 2 kids together who are 4 and 2. We both had previous marriages and had kids from those marriages. My kids, who are 12 and 10, have always had a good relationship with their mother, but my stepson, who's 11, hasn't seen his biological father in years. We started seriously discussing the divorce after deciding that it is basically impossible for us to reconcile. We are happy to split custody of our kids and are committed to ensuring that they grow up feeling safe and loved and as stable as possible. But my wife also wants me to commit to having a parental relationship with my stepson because he does not have any other father figures in his life. I refused. I have nothing against the kid personally, but we've both always acknowledged that I wasn't his father. He never called me dad, and I never asked him to. And to share custody of him like I do my biological kids, it sounds insane to me. My wife is upset because her son has started talking to her about how he feels he doesn't have a dad. I understand that must be uncomfortable, but he isn't my son. She needs to talk to his actual father about that. However, when I discussed this with my friends, I got a mixed response. Some agreed with me, some agreed fully with my wife, and some have said I should have committed to that for a limited amount of time for the adjustment period. But it's been almost a year since we've lived together as it is. I don't want to ruin the kid's life, but I don't see why he should be partially my responsibility anymore. Am I the jerk? Edit. To clarify, his father was involved in his life until he was about 6 or 7, and then he disappeared, so I'm not the only father figure he's ever had. Not the jerk. If your soon-to-be ex remarries, your having taken any responsibility for her son would make that really weird. Also, if you take any responsibility for the kid, you may end up paying child support. So sad for the kid, but she would do better to get him involved with big brothers. I don't know. If he's not your son, I get it. But at 11 years old, after 6 years of marriage and 1 of separation, you're realistically the only father figure this kid has ever had. I'm going to say not the jerk because you really aren't obligated to do anything, and it would be a burden for you to accept joint custody. But you've got a chance here to maybe have an ongoing positive influence in this kid's life. Don't pass that up without thinking long and hard about it. Info. Is she expecting child support for your stepson? Or just you still being in his life since you really are the only father figure he knows? I don't think you're the jerk necessarily, but this is a really crappy situation for your stepson, and I imagine could cause some issues between him and his siblings. Also, the kid is 11. Have you considered what he wants? Has anyone asked him? Boomer pushed to the edge over 60 cents. The scene. It's a local McDonald's in the summer of 2020. Lockdown is raging, and I'm a young shift manager handing drinks out the drive-thru window. An old man pulls up, and I hand him his cappuccino. Boomer. I didn't order a hot beverage. Me. Yes, you did, sir. This is a cappuccino, unless you wanted the iced coffee frap. Boomer. Yeah, one of those iced cappuccino things. Me. That's Tim Hortons. There's one right across the street if you'd like. Okay, take this warm crab back and give me my money. Me. Unfortunately, I can't take anything back into the restaurant because of the lockdown. I can still refund you though. No, I don't want it. Take it back. Me. Once you've touched it, I can't, sir. I'm sorry. Boomer proceeds to mutter about whatever and peels off. I see him pull around, get out of his car. I find a coworker to cover me while I head over to the front counter. I know this guy is upset, and I'm ready to make his day even harder. He storms in. "Give me one of those iced frappuccino things. I don't want this." Me. "Sir, I still can't take it back, but there's garbage all around you." He takes a step back, removes the lid, and lifts the cup as if to pour it onto the floor. "Fine, I'll pour it all over the floor then." Me. "No, you won't." A standoff ensues. I ring up an iced coffee frap and see that his refund is about 60 cents short of the frap. Normally, I would waive that without a second thought for customer satisfaction. It's McDonald's, 60 cents doesn't mean anything to them. But when you threaten to pour your drink out like a kid, you lose that generosity. Me. "Look, would you like the frap? I have your refund right here and I can put it toward the frap." "Fine." He then proceeds to throw his cappuccino out. Me. "Unfortunately, sir, the frap is 60 cents more expensive than what you paid for it. I'm gonna need you to pay the difference because the cappuccino was an honest mistake on our end, considering what you thought you were ordering." "What?" I don't say anything. He proceeds to yell every word in the book at me while I stare him down unchanged. At this point, I had handled him start to finish. My senior manager jumped in once Boomer yelled loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear and kicked him out without a second thought. The Boomer left without his refund, cappuccino, or frap. It was a good day. Edit. For my non-Canadian friends, the gentleman wanted an iced cap, which is a very distinct beverage from Tim Hortons. The iced frap, or any other variation of iced cappuccino, was not what he was looking for. His day would have been fine if he had taken his money out the window and drove across the street to Tim's. Am I the jerk for calling my girlfriend spoiled after she said she felt like a Neanderthal showering with a bucket? My girlfriend and I are currently in vacation in Croatia. We booked a small villa from Airbnb in which we have been staying this last week. 3 days ago, the water heater stopped working, so we called the owner. A few hours later, he brought a plumber with him. After some investigation, he told us the issue will take a week or more to solve because the plumber told him that the heater was old and needed replacing, so he needs to shop for a new one and then it needs to be installed in a new location. He told us he was going to refund the amount we paid for that day, plus the remaining days of our booking, and if we wanted to stay despite the lack of hot water, he was going to give us a much cheaper rate, 40% off. We were having a great time and enjoying our stay because the villa was nice and the view of the beach was incredible and looked 10 times better than the heavily edited pictures you see on the internet. Not to mention, it was a good deal, especially with the newer rate, so we decided to stay after I told my girlfriend that we could just shower using a bucket. Something to note, my girlfriend has never showered that way. She's American, but still I assume that many people from the US would have at least heard about it despite never trying it. Growing up, I exclusively showered that way at home until we could afford a heater and its monthly costs. The only showers I took at home before were with cold water. She was surprised to hear it and thought I was joking at first. The following day, I gave her some tips, and after she was done, I asked her how it went. She said it was more of a chore than a shower. Last evening, she went to take a shower again before getting ready to leave for dinner. After she was done, she started complaining nonstop about showering with a bucket, saying it was very primitive and couldn't believe that some people really did it this way because she felt like a Neanderthal the whole time. I didn't like her comment because it was disrespectful. She apologized, saying her comment wasn't directed towards me, but more towards the people that still shower this way. I told her that her clarification makes her comment 100 times worse because it was insulting to a lot of people. She replied that she didn't know what I wanted her to say because she had already apologized to me and asked if I just was looking for a reason to argue. I told her that the last thing I want to do is argue with a spoiled kid and went downstairs. I waited for her while downstairs and she got ready. When she came downstairs, she informed me that she'll be going to the restaurant alone because she didn't want to embarrass me in case she started acting like a spoiled kid. I tried apologizing for my comment, but she just ignored me and left. It's 3:30 now, and she just came back half an hour ago. I tried talking to her again, but she told me she was tired and just wanted to go to sleep. Edit. Someone told me to add my response to this post. It was a suggestion that she agreed with because we both didn't want to leave the villa because of what I mentioned in the post, and since most of the houses by the beach side were booked and the ones we found available were way too expensive for us to afford. We discussed showering at the public showers by the beach, but they only had cold water, and the fact that they were public, the closest gym was 25 minutes away, so it wasn't viable to waste approximately an hour each day to shower unless we planned our days around it because we don't visit the downtown every day. We both decided to stay after I suggested we could shower with hot water using a bucket. It's not like I'm forcing her to stay or shower with a bucket. We could just find another place to stay at for the remainder of our vacation, even if it's not as nice as the villa. Not the jerk. She was acting like a spoiled kid. She doesn't even realize what a privilege it is to be able to complain about that sort of thing. Lol, it's a fair thing to complain about. I'll agree that for those who are not used to it and did not expect it, it is a fair thing to complain about within reason. Continuing to go on and on about it and then be ignorantly insulting to those who do it out of necessity is not at all within reason, especially considering the person she was there with literally had to do that due to necessity. Everyone sucks here. Her comments were insensitive, but your response was deliberately insulting. Edit. You can all stop lecturing me in the replies. I'm not excusing her comments. She definitely needs to learn to examine her privilege and adjust the way she thinks and speaks. Still doesn't mean her boyfriend gets a free pass for calling her a spoiled kid. Insults don't really promote a teachable moment. Everyone sucks here. I'm American and have never showered with a bucket or ever really heard of people showering that way. It's like one of those abstract things you probably know if you used common sense, but yes, because we're privileged, we don't think about it. Taking that into consideration, if I was staying at a villa on vacation, I would be irritated if I had to use a bucket to shower and would very likely complain about it being more of an inconvenience than a regular shower, because it is. I mean, it's vacation. I would assume she was probably trying to make a comparison to express her frustration and was truly not trying to be insulting to a majority of the world population. Americans are known to be lacking self-awareness. Does that make us jerks? Yes, clearly. Is it intentional? Definitely not always. You seem to take her comment as a personal attack, although it wasn't one, and you threw a personal attack back at her that I'm guessing was to hurt her on purpose. Was she acting privileged? Yes. Did you need to call her a spoiled kid? Probably not. Both jerks, but both with a bit of valid reasons on both sides. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.